On July 9th, 2024, in the quiet suburb of Bushey, Hertfordshire, a calm summer evening hit a monstrous storm brewing behind closed doors. Ashlin Close, a street known for blooming gardens and polite neighbors, became the site of one of Britain's most chilling family murders.
On the loose there with the crossbow, so we all went upstairs and kept on popping our head like most of the neighbours there through the windows kind of thing there, so a bit of window watching.
I mean, what was that like on a normal evening, being told there's a man with a crossbow nearby?
It's unnerving.
We were all very anxious. We were on edge all night, unable to sleep until the very early hours of the morning because we're just seeing a flood of blue lights, helicopters, sirens everywhere. We were all very scared.
Bit of a shock because it's a really residential area and there isn't, nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work, and back and forwards to where they go. Never saw anybody round here carrying a crossbow at all, never at all.
Inside that house lived the Hunt family, led by John Hunt, a respected BBC racing commentator.
Carlingford locked and AP McCoy, get up! Of course he did!
Whose world would soon crumble in a way no human heart should ever endure. That evening, 3 women, his wife and 2 daughters, were hunted like prey in their own home by a man they once knew. A man with a crossbow, a broken heart, and a darkness that no one saw coming until it was too late. This is the story of how love turned to lethal obsession in the Ashlin Close murders. On June 26, 2024, just weeks before the killings, Louise Hunt, 25, made a decision she believed would free her from a suffocating relationship. Louise was the youngest daughter of Carol and John Hunt, known for her warm smile and determination to build her life independently.
One of the loveliest girl I ever knew. Always had a smile and very positive and hardworking. So genuinely a really, really sweet person.
Just a lovely girl. I just can't believe it's happened. It's, like I say, it's a thing nightmares are made of. She was the nicest, kindest, sweetest person that you could ever meet. Beautiful, beautiful person.
She had been dating Kyle Marcus Clifford, a 26-year-old man from Enfield, North London, for several months. To outsiders, Clifford appeared polite and calm, but to Louise, his darker side began showing. Views that were controlling, opinions that felt hateful, and a possessive jealousy that left her feeling trapped. On that late June afternoon, Louise finally ended things with Clifford. She told her friends she felt relieved, as if a weight had lifted from her chest. Clifford responded with quiet acceptance. There were no threats, no angry messages. He simply said, "Okay, if that's what you want." But under his calm demeanor brewed a rage he chose not to show. Instead, he planned, meticulously, obsessively, for an attack that would forever destroy not just Louise, but her entire family. Between June 27th and July 8th, 2024, in the days following their breakup, Clifford's internet history painted the picture of a killer in preparation. He purchased a crossbow and bolts, browsing reviews and tutorials on their lethal power. He ordered a butcher knife, searched for duct tape and rope, and even bought petrol, hinting at potential arson or further violence. His most chilling attempt was ordering a Glock air pistol, which was never delivered in time. This was not a spontaneous act of passion. It was a premeditated hunt, driven by revenge, power, and an obsession with control. He isolated himself in his room, barely speaking to family. Neighbors later told police they saw him in his garden, practicing with the crossbow, shooting at cardboard targets with unsettling focus. To them, he was just a quiet young man keeping to himself. To Louise, he was becoming her worst nightmare, a nightmare she never lived to wake up from. On July 9th, 2024, at approximately 5:45 p.m., Kyle Clifford arrived on Ashlin Close. He wore dark clothing and carried a bag heavy with his weapons. He rang the doorbell of the Hunt family home, standing there with forced calm as he clutched Louise's belongings in one hand, a calculated prop to gain entry. Carol Hunt, 61, answered the door with her gentle smile, unaware that death stood before her. Clifford stepped forward, whispering he needed to return something for Louise. As she turned to call her daughter, he lunged, The butcher knife gleamed under the hallway lights as he stabbed Carol multiple times, each blow deeper than the last, driven by pure rage. Carol collapsed instantly, dying where she fell. Clifford then stepped over her body and entered the living room, where Louise and her older sister Hannah were sitting, unaware of their mother's fate just meters away. With robotic precision, he grabbed duct tape from his bag and forced Louise to her knees. He taped her wrists and ankles, rendering her powerless, before sexually assaulting her in an act of depravity that prosecutors would later describe as planned to humiliate and torture. Hannah tried to intervene, but Clifford pulled out his crossbow. He loaded it calmly, aimed at her chest, and fired. The bolt pierced Hannah's body with such force that she screamed, collapsed, and gasped for air as blood filled her lungs. Louise, tied and sobbing, watched her sister die, knowing her own end was near. Clifford turned to her and, without a flicker of mercy, fired another bolt into her chest. At 7:10 p.m. on July 9, 2024, Hannah, clinging to her final breaths, gathered the strength to call 999. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, I've been shot. I think I'm dying. Please, hurry." Her words were faint, her breathing ragged. The operator tried to keep her conscious, but her responses grew slower and weaker. When officers arrived minutes later, they forced open the front door to a scene so horrific that even the most seasoned detectives wept. Hannah lay near the entrance, soaked in blood but barely alive. Louise was tied up in the living room, a crossbow bolt protruding from her chest, her eyes staring blankly into nothingness. Carol was in the hallway, lifeless, her body bearing deep stab wounds. Paramedics rushed Hannah to the ambulance, but her injuries were unsurvivable. Within minutes of arrival at Watford General Hospital, Hannah Hunt was pronounced dead. The Hunt family home had become a slaughterhouse. On July 10, 2024, as dawn broke over Bushey, Hertfordshire police set up a major incident command center just meters away from Ashlin Close. The street, lined with police tape, flashing lights, and forensic tents, had become the epicenter of one of the most horrifying crimes in recent British history. Detectives from the Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit arrived early, led by Senior Investigator Detective Superintendent Rob Hall. Their first task was to piece together the timeline. Officers began collecting CCTV footage from neighboring houses, street cameras, and petrol stations along Clifford's possible route. Within hours, footage showed his dark car leaving Enfield at around 4:30 p.m. and arriving in Bushey just before 6 p.m., confirming premeditation rather than a spontaneous attack. Inside the Hunt family home, forensic specialists worked tirelessly. In the narrow hallway lay Carol Hunt's lifeless body, covered gently by a white sheet as evidence markers dotted the blood-spattered tiles. Near the entrance was Hannah, her clothes soaked in blood, with a crossbow bolt lying next to her body bag after paramedics tried in vain to save her. The living room was the most harrowing scene. Louise lay tied with duct tape, her hands and ankles bound, her mouth partially gagged, and a crossbow bolt still embedded in her chest. Near her were the remnants of Clifford's arsenal: empty crossbow bolt packaging, duct tape rolls, rope, and the butcher knife he had used to stab Carol. Fingerprints lifted from the duct tape and bolts confirmed Clifford's identity within hours. Detectives also recovered his bag, containing unused bolts and extra duct tape rolls, suggesting he had planned for more victims or an extended hostage situation. His phone, found inside his abandoned car parked 2 streets away, revealed his browsing history. Investigators were horrified to find that in the days before the murders, he had searched phrases such as "best crossbow for home defense," "how to kill with a crossbow," and "quickest way to kill with a knife." He had also browsed the legal restrictions on crossbows in the UK and watched multiple YouTube videos reviewing models similar to the one he bought. Police quickly interviewed neighbors along Ashlin Close. One elderly neighbor reported seeing Clifford arrive, describing him as calm, almost polite, as he carried a black duffel bag to the door. Another neighbor recalled hearing a muffled scream, but dismissed it as children playing.
On the loose there with the crossbow, so we all went upstairs and kept on popping our head like most of the neighbours there through the windows, kind of thing there. So a bit of window watching.
I mean, what was that like on a normal evening, being told there's a man with a crossbow nearby?
It's unnerving.
We were all very anxious. We were on edge all night, unable to sleep until the very early hours of the morning because we're just seeing a flood of blue lights, helicopters, sirens everywhere. We were all very scared.
Bit of a shock because it's a really residential area and there isn't, nothing much ever goes on round here at all apart from people going back and forwards to work, and back and forwards to where they go. Never saw anybody round here carrying a crossbow at all, never at all.
CCTV from a home across the street captured Clifford walking towards the Hunt residence at 5:43 p.m. and leaving at 6:12 p.m., walking briskly, wiping his hands on his trousers. This confirmed that in less than 30 minutes, he had killed 3 people. As the manhunt escalated, officers used automatic number plate recognition, ANPR cameras to trace Clifford's car, leaving Bushey and returning to Enfield. Analysis of his phone data showed no calls or messages sent after the murders, suggesting he had planned to disappear. His last phone activity was a note saved at 6:30 p.m., reading simply, "I had no choice. She needed to know." In the command center, detectives analyzed every detail to predict his next move. Would he target other family members? Was he armed with more weapons? The urgency was heightened by the contents found in his car: petrol, rope, and duct tape, hinting at further intended crimes or even hostage plans. Police tactical units were briefed for immediate deployment upon sighting him, with orders to treat him as an armed suspect capable of lethal violence.
The overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately.
Meanwhile, forensic psychologists were consulted. They concluded Clifford's behavior showed classic traits of mission-oriented violence: planned, meticulous, targeted at specific individuals for perceived betrayal, with zero remorse or panic after execution.
Cold-blooded and calculated in his actions. There were so many opportunities to step away from what he's doing, but he had a plan from the very outset. That included the pretense to get into the house.
This psychological profile was broadcast to all regional officers, reinforcing the danger he posed to any potential bystanders. The investigation also revealed that Clifford had no prior criminal convictions. He had once been reported for aggressive behavior towards an ex-girlfriend in 2022, but no charges were filed and the case was closed. Detectives later said that had his behavior been formally recorded, risk assessment could have flagged him earlier, potentially saving lives. By the morning of July 10, 2024, over 200 officers, specialist firearms units, and helicopter teams were searching parks, abandoned buildings, and woodlands around North London and Hertfordshire. Public appeals were broadcast on every major news channel, urging citizens not to approach him. At 9 a.m., a woman called police after spotting a man matching his description sitting alone among gravestones in Lavender Hill Cemetery, Enfield. The final chapter of the investigation was about to unfold. Detectives prepared for a possible armed confrontation, unaware that Clifford had already turned the crossbow on himself. On July 10, 2024, just a day after the murders, a breakthrough came. Police traced Clifford to Lavender Hill Cemetery in Enfield, a place silent and hidden beneath tall oaks. There, among moss-covered graves, officers found him collapsed against a tombstone. Blood soaked his chest where he had attempted to end his own life with a crossbow bolt. He was still breathing, barely. Paramedics arrived swiftly, stabilizing him before rushing him to hospital under heavy armed guard. Clifford survived. Police officers guarded his hospital room day and night. When he woke, he showed no remorse, only silent stares into the ceiling. as if reliving his violent triumph. Detectives later found notes in his phone suggesting he intended to kill himself after murdering Louise and her family. But fate left him alive to face justice.
Do you accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people?
No.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise?
No comment.
From the moment that she sent you that text message at the end of June, you began to plan her murder? Yes?
No comment.
Please don't think of this as me throwing my life away. I have lived, and I am grateful for everything and everyone that has been a part of it. It is now my time to leave and be at peace, as this is what I ultimately want. I know you will all have so many questions and wish you could have done something different to prevent this. However, none of you have failed, and there is simply nothing any of you could have done. This is my decision to just be at peace. You all have to take care of each other and speak to each other, as that will be the best thing for you all. I love you all so much. You okay, Carl? Just carry on. When you wrote that note, had you already planned the murders of Louise, Carol and Hannah? So I'm interested in the words prevent this. So tell me what you mean by prevent this.
Comment.
Do you mean the murders of Carol, Hannah and Louise?
No comment.
On March 1st, 2025, Kyle Clifford stood in the dock at St. Albans Crown Court, his chest scar visible through his collar. He was charged with 3 counts of murder, false imprisonment, and 2 counts of possessing offensive weapons. Clifford initially pleaded not guilty to murder, admitting only to killing the women and possessing the weapons, but denying the on Louise. His defense argued that he acted in blind rage without, but prosecutors produced irrefutable evidence. DNA samples from Louise's body matched Clifford, duct tape residue confirmed restraint, and injury patterns showed deliberate sexual violence. During the trial, John Hunt sat silently in the public gallery, his eyes hollow with grief. His surviving daughter, Amy, held his hand as details of her sister's assault and murder were read aloud in court, each word like a fresh blade to the heart. After weeks of testimony, on March 11, 2025, the jury returned their verdict, guilty on all counts, including rape. The judge in sentencing described Clifford's acts as sadistic, premeditated, and depraved beyond measure. He imposed a whole life order, meaning Clifford would die in prison, never tasting freedom again.
Carl Clifford, on the 9th of July last year, you went to the home of your former girlfriend, Louise Hunt, and launched a murderous attack on her and her family. You first killed her mother, Carol, who even on that day showed you nothing but kindness in the moments before you attacked her. You and killed Louise, who had been as gentle as she could in ending her relationship with you after your arrogance and anger proved too much for her to stand. Then you murdered Hannah Hunt, who had done nothing to harm you save supporting her little sister. The evidence I have heard shows you to be a jealous man, soaked in self-pity, a man who holds women in utter contempt. This is no occasion to subject the family and friends of your victims to any delay or suspense. I therefore make clear at once that for each of these 3 murders, the sentence will be one of life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means a sentence from which you will never be released. Your brutal and cowardly attack had been planned over about 11 days. You conducted extensive research into the movements of Louise's father, John, into her mother's Facebook page, into buying a crossbow, a knife and an air pistol, and even into the weather on the day of the attack. You bought rope, duct tape, petrol cans, the knife you used in the attack, and a crossbow. You wrote letters to your family dripping with self-pity. On the day of the attack, you first parked well away from the Hunt family home to check if Louise's father was there. Researching his work when you saw his car was indeed outside the house. You approached a second time with a bag of Louise's clothes and a thank you card to Carol and John Hunt, obviously part of a plan to trick Mrs. Hunt into letting you in the house. You first talked to Carol Hunt on the doorstep and persuaded her to admit you. She spoke kindly to you, but you then attacked her, stabbing her to death within moments of entering. You then left the house to collect the crossbow. Louise Hunt had been working in a building in the garden of the house. When she came in, you restrained her with duct tape round her wrists and ankles and gagged her. You kept her there alive for over 2.5 hours. She must have come to realize you'd already killed her mother. During that time, you her. Then you murdered her by shooting her with the crossbow as her sister Hannah was about to enter the house.
On March 12, 2025, the UK woke up to headlines that reignited a fierce debate. The Ashlin Close murders became the catalyst for urgent calls to tighten crossbow regulations, with MPs demanding mandatory licensing and stricter background checks for buyers. For the Hunt family, no law could bring back their beloved Carol, Hannah, or Louise. John Hunt, in a statement to the BBC, said, "They were the best of us. Carol was my heart, and our daughters were our light. Their absence is a darkness that will never lift." Louise's friends gathered outside the family home days later, laying flowers, candles, and handwritten notes. One note read, "We will never let your story fade, Louise. You deserved love, not this." Hannah's colleagues from her marketing firm organized a charity drive in her name, raising funds for domestic abuse victims. The street of Ashlin Close remains forever changed. Residents still speak in hushed tones about the day their peaceful cul-de-sac became a crime scene, marked by ambulances, police tape, and shattered dreams. On March 31st, 2025, as the Hunt family held a private memorial for Carol, Hannah, and Louise, the country paused to remember. 3 lives taken in minutes by a man blinded by rejection and fueled by revenge. The Ashlin Close murders remind us that monsters do not always come in masks. Sometimes they come as lovers. Sometimes they come bearing gifts and gentle smiles, hiding a darkness so deep that not even the brightest family light can save them. Today, Kyle Clifford sits behind bars for the rest of his life, but the scars he left behind will never fade. Ashlin Close will forever be remembered, not just for its quiet gardens, but for the night when love turned into horror and a peaceful home became a hunting ground. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more true crime cases that reveal the darkest corners of the human mind. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, always trust your instincts.